The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome to another fabulous week here on the Brandon Peters Show. Today we'll be discussing the 1998 film Out of Sight. And alongside for discussion, I'm very excited to welcome one of my old podcasting co-hosts, a Drama Desk winner, Drama League winner, a GLAAD Award-winning Broadway producer, and one of the hosts of Front Center Mezzanine, and now Tony Award nominated, the marvelous Maxwell Haddad.
Oh gosh, when you put it all like that, it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
I try to be real humble, and then you hear it all spelled out like that, and you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's me. But you notice when it comes to the Broadway stuff, I kept saying wins. So maybe they should start engraving your name on the Tony now.
Oh, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Frankly, they haven't even announced when they're going to hold the awards this year.
Fair enough.
It's been, obviously with everything going on, it's been sort of fly by the seat of the pants. So we'll see. We have some competition. It's just an honor to be nominated.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure
it really is.
Tickled to see your name and just be like, oh, well, okay. That's a life achievement not many people get to see.
It's true. I sort of had set like very lofty goals for myself by a certain age, and getting a Tony nomination was one of those, and I achieved it far earlier in my life than I ever could have anticipated. So it's all downhill from here.
Excellent. Well, congrats. And
Thank you.
Brushed to that before, but you and I know each other from podcasting stuff, really, I think.
Yeah, I think we first met because we were both frequent guests on Out Now with Aaron and Abe.
Yeah.
And then, gosh, I don't know what year it was, but we had a podcast about the Fox TV show Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah. Called
the Icapod Cranecast.
Yes.
Which the name was the best thing about the podcast, I thought.
Yeah. Well, the best thing. Well, that one was it. So we did that, and then
we did a 24 one also.
We did 24 was our follow up.
Yeah.
When it came back, and the Icapod Cranecast is funny because one, I think Entertainment Weekly or something started their own, and they called it Icapod, and they sent Aaron an email just like, hey, sorry but not sorry. We're gonna call her something similar, but cool.
I remember that.
And then we stopped the show just because we were three honest guys, and we weren't going to feign interest in a show that was kind of wearing on us.
It had a terrific first season, and then it went downhill fast. And so I don't like to spend my time trashing things. If I don't like something, I would rather not talk about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't feel fun to continue doing a podcast about a show that I once really enjoyed, and now is sort of just slogging through week by week. So.
Yeah, there'd be like a week between, and be like, I don't know, but yeah, we did that, and then we did Jack and Chloe, and that was fun. That was
That was fun. Yeah, that was good.
That was our third season of Sleepy Hollow for people.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly.
So I mean, since then you've been getting it. I mean, not getting. You probably always been into, but a lot more of your podcasting and stuff has been like theater focused, Broadway, things like that. So, and you've got your hand in a lot of things. You've been, you may be Tony Award nominated now, but you've been producing a lot of plays and stuff, like funding and things like that the past decade, I guess, or half decade.
Yeah, so I not quite that long. So okay. I've been a theater fan my whole life. My parents always took me to the theater, and then when it came time for college, and I went to college in Philadelphia, it was a 90-minute Bolt bus or mega bus ride into the city on the weekend. So I would just come and see theater, and I acted in theater in high school and the musicals and stuff. So it was always a passion of mine. And then in about 2016, I decided to start investing in theater, which was sort of my way in to start getting to meet people, start networking, and put my money where my mouth is, because, I love theater and I have very strong ideas about what the future of theater can and should be. I think a lot of it is antiquated and broken. Not to get overtly political, but
That's fair.
there's a lot of systemic racism. There's a lot of, you would expect the theater industry to be more inclusive, and from my experience, is not as inclusive and opening as it can and should be. So I'm not saying or suggesting that I alone can make any sort of impact, but I have met a lot of people who feel similarly.
Mhm.
And together we have tried to work on projects and support theater artists whom we think have a voice worthy of hearing, who maybe wouldn't get heard otherwise. Yeah, so like in 2016, I started investing in shows, and then I formed a company with two people, and we started producing shows as well as concerts. There's a lot of cabaret clubs
Mhm.
in the city, so we were doing all sorts of fun concerts. It's not necessarily a way to make money, but it's a great way to show off new work and have a good time. So
Right. Experiment there and take it
yeah,
further. Yeah.
and sometimes if it works out, you can.
Mhm.
It's a great way to like workshop a show, see what people think, and then you never know what could be next with that material.
Mhm. And you also share your appreciation for it on the Front Center Mezzanine, which how long has that show been going?
So we started that show in June. We've
Mhm.
done 10 episodes. We try to do one every 2 weeks, but with scheduling and stuff, it's been more like one every 2 to 3 weeks. But I've loved doing that. We every episode we have a different guest from the theater industry. We've had composers, we've had producers, we've had actors, and I really try to make it relaxed and casual. I want my guests to feel comfortable and just be a very open conversation
Right.
about everything from their childhood to their career in theater. And they tend to go about 2 hours. So, and the guests, when they're done, they always say, I had such a good time. That felt so much more relaxed than the typical interview where it's like stock questions. So I really like doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, is there a big world for that in like podcasting or video blog or whatever? Because I mean, when I saw you started, I was like, oh, that's a good idea. It doesn't I don't typically in my realm of seeing things. That's I don't see much of that.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely plenty, not as many as there are about film and television, but there's a
Right.
good number of very good theater based podcasts. I think interview ones specifically less so, especially video.
Hmm.
Broadway.com, the editor is a guy named Paul Wanterock, who for years has done, I don't know, every week or every month, I'm not sure exactly, like half an hour interviews with Broadway performers and writers and stuff. So it's certainly not a new concept by any
Right.
stretch of the imagination, but I do it as part of a podcast network that is primarily movie based.
Hmm. Okay.
And the reason why I like doing that, and the feedback from our listeners or watchers, people mostly watch as opposed to listen, is that they are learning about a world they were not familiar with prior.
Hmm.
And to me, that means I'm doing my job, right?
Right.
If you have
Yeah.
people who love film, love television, theater is just another form of storytelling. And to like illuminate all the inside baseball, the secrets, the surprises, everything that can go on in a Broadway production, and educate people and have a good time too has been awesome.
Yeah. That's great.
Like sort of like crossing over from one industry to another, because obviously how much I love cinema. I went to
Hmm.
film school, like film was my thing, and so to find a way to bridge the gap is exciting.
Yeah. I was a theater kid in high school and stuff, and I live in an area where there is stuff. There's a lot of stuff, but where you're at New York, it's just that is the thing. That's like a whole world. I tell my children, I'm like, yeah, there's a whole world of celebrity, big names, really talented people that you go to New York, boom. It's kind of like Vegas has that too, where it's local, but they're larger than life local. That
Yeah,
people need
I
to.
think uh barring the few minor exceptions, the people I would consider big Broadway stars are
Mhm.
probably not household names across America,
Right. Yeah.
but in New York they're superstars. And then of
Mhm.
course you have people like Nathan Lane or Bette Midler, or when Daniel Craig or Hugh Jackman come to Broadway, everybody knows. But those are not the, and they're very talented, but there's so many incredibly talented theater people who, if you're in the theater industry in New York, and you respect, and then a lot of other people have probably never even heard of them before.
Yeah. And it's like it's a huge, they're like huge, like not just like, oh, I know this person, but yeah, it's a whole different world that people should experience when they go to visit too. Like, just
absolutely
spend your time at the theater the whole time. You will not.
Look, it's been tough. I mean, there are myriad reasons why COVID has been tough for everybody,
right.
But for me, and the city really, the theater shut down, which, the Broadway League, which is sort of like the governing organization of Broadway, has now said at the earliest, Broadway will reopen in June of next year. And who knows, even at this point, if that's going to be the case or not. That means it will have been closed for 14 months at least, which is the longest.
Devastating. Yeah,
it's devastating on so many levels, financially. So many of these actors, because a handful of them do very well, but for the most part, the ensemble members, the stalwart actors who have a career are not making exorbitant money. So they're now out of insurance because they're not working. They're really struggling. And obviously, of course, it affects the economy of the city because tourists come to New York to see Broadway. That's like
it's what you have.
Yeah. So it's been tough on so many levels. And then for me personally, it's just like, I would be going to the theater 3 times a week. So, everyone is missing things, and it's hard to be selfish, but sometimes you have to reflect and be a little selfish. And I'm like, I miss live theater so much.
Right. I bet I talked about recently, I had a friend who rented out this is theater, but rented out a IMAX theater and only invited 9 people to watch Tenet in it.
Oh, that's cool.
And I got invited. He invited me to go, and it was weird just sitting in there. And when the Warner Brother logo came up, I got like choked up because I'm like, I love doing this. Like, it's weird. It's just Tenet. This is just a logo, but that rush is going to happen. And I think a lot of people, once we can get back, it's going to be emotional. And I think it's going to restore the love of some of these things that people are like, oh, this is the death of them. I'm like, just hold off.
Yeah. A lot of people are preemptively writing articles about the death of cinema. Obviously, we're seeing, Wonder Woman's coming to streaming. Mulan went to streaming. There's talk about the next Godzilla coming to streaming. And okay, in the short term, that might be an appropriate fix. But I genuinely believe that the long-term effect of this will be people will re-fall in love with going to the movie theater. Also, partly because when it's safe to do so, when the vaccine is, been mass-produced enough, people are just going to be happy to have somewhere to go.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Concerts, like ball games, like all the things are going to get
the entertainment industry, the sports industry, all that stuff, I think is going to boom. Maybe not at first. I think there will be some hesitation. Is it safe yet? What do I do? But I really think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I got to go do something. I've been sitting in my house for a year now.
Introverts will become extroverts. Like that.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
So with your, you want to talk a little about The Inheritance, the one you're nominated for?
Sure. Yeah. The Inheritance is a really special play. So it's written by a guy named Matthew Lopez, directed by Stephen Daldry, the filmmaker who, has done stuff like Billy Elliot and The Hours. And, he's a very notable, well-known filmmaker. It originally played in London. And what's unique about it is it's actually 2 parts. And the total runtime of the 2 parts encroaches on 7 hours. So it's really a marathon of an experience, much in the tradition of Angels in America, which was, of course, a landmark queer play in the 90s, which was also similarly 2 parts and very long. And it's about a group of younger gay men living in modern New York. And through the people they meet, some of whom are from an older generation, it sort of talks about how it's important to look back at the people who walked the paths you're on before you and the steps and impact they had so you could be where you are today. Sorry, the dog is barking. I don't know if you can
Not
hear
the first
that.
dogs that have barked during the show. And my cat's jumping.
No, I'm sure.
Floor, so don't worry.
Yeah, just like, especially in the queer community, because that's what it's all about. Like it reflects back on the AIDS crisis
Oh, okay.
the advances that, we still have a long way to go, but how much more accepted it is now, and then how much more difficult it was for gay men in the 80s and
Mm-hmm.
early 90s. And it's based on the E.M. Forster book Howard's End.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so E.M. Forster is actually a character in the play,
Oh.
sort of serving as a narrator throughout. So it's a really interesting dramatic conceit. I was so passionate about it when I read it. I thought it was so powerful and beautiful and emotional. I loved how minimalistic the directing was. There were no big set pieces. The stage was sort of just like a giant white square elevated from the stage, so the entire ensemble could sort of sit with their feet dangling below. No actors wore shoes. And then when it came time for the scene, they would just sort of scoot up and get on the platform and perform. There was lighting and costume changes, but it really allowed the text and the performances to speak for themselves. And I thought some of the performances were just incredible. So for me and my producing partners on this play, it was really just special to be a part of it, regardless of what has happened with all the awards we've won and gotten nominated for. It felt like an important play. And I firmly believe that, even though it wasn't as huge of a financial success here in New York as we had expected, which ended up not mattering because we would have been shut down due to COVID anyways. I really think it's a play that people will buy and read and love. And I also think, because of the nature of it, because of the length, it is perfectly suited for like a prestige miniseries.
Wow, yeah. Well, like Angels in America became a miniseries.
Yeah, exactly. So whether it's Netflix or HBO or something like that, I would not be surprised in a few years to see that sort of adaptation of it.
Yeah, I definitely like to see it somehow, some way. So if that's the way, then definitely that's really cool. And that's nominated not just for with you for best play. It's like across the board got a lot of nominations.
I think we got 11 nominations. Look, I fully recognize that this was an unusual year. Not everything that was meant to opened. So maybe there will be an asterisk next to this year's Tony Awards, but it's still, we did,
yeah.
At the, 5 years from now, no one's going to remember that anyways. And we're still there's some other great plays and great performers nominated. So,
well, I mean, if you go back, let's go back decades, how many were not available for nomination during a year? It's just, that's the amount that came out.
Yeah. And there are fluctuating years. Like you can go back and look, there are some years where there are only 2 musicals nominated for best musical because only three opened.
Flip a coin, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, every year is different and has its own scenarios that come down.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited for you, proud of you. That's just,
I appreciate it.
Incredible. That's great. Another thing I thought was really awesome that you've done recently was the Smash-a-thon. Where you raised over $15,000.
Yeah.
And doing Schmodown stuff where you were an excellent play caller. That was
thanks.
Some funny stuff there. You had John Roca, who was on this show last month. And that was a really fun, successful event, and had to been draining by the end because it was how many hours straight?
We ended up going for like a minute shy of 30 hours.
Okay.
And during that 30 hours, I got maybe 70 minutes of intermittent sleep.
On accident, like.
Yeah. Sort of, yeah. I mean, I wasn't on camera the whole time, although I was a fair amount, but I was always backstage. I have no interest in taking credit for it because it was really, I don't know if your listeners are, or you yourself are familiar with the Schmodown at all, but, it's a really incredible community. There's so many different podcasts that cover it, sort of like if you were like ESPN talking about a baseball game.
Yeah.
They talk about the trivia matches in the Schmodown. And so it was really the whole community coming together, but there were like 5 or 6 of us who were sort of the anchors to make sure everything ran smoothly. We're always there, so we did it through StreamYard. But then we had a Zoom running backstage, so where we were all chatting. watching, making sure everything was going. But honestly, like in our wildest dreams, we raised more money than we ever could have anticipated. I mean, the outpouring of support was unreal. And Kevin Smets, who it was all for, is an incredible human being. He has unfortunately been fighting stage 3 colon cancer. He's only in his early 40s, so he has a very good shot, but it sort of devastated his life. He also just got married this year. He has a newborn baby. So it's just devastating. So it was our pleasure to do whatever we could to help him. And people really, really came out to support him in a way that was very overwhelming and emotional. And it reminded me, it's been a tough year. There's been a lot of cynicism and negativity, and it really reminded me of the power of empathy in the human spirit. I know that might sound a little cheesy, but that was really how I felt at the end of it. Like when I finally got good sleep and had time to reflect, it was like one of the most positive experiences of my life, because it was amazing how people could get together for a common cause and do good. I don't think you see that enough.
No, and I just personally myself did an event. It was 12 hours long, and I was only there for 3 hours of it, but doing things for a Make-A-Wish Foundation. I was doing some live trivia games, stuff like that. But like I've seen some people combat this stuff, and it really bothers me, where people are trying to do positive things, despite what's going on, and trying to not make the best of it type thing, but trying to do something with it, trying to keep their art, their lives, their foundations going, and trying to find avenues and giving them something to get their brain off or be productive with it. And I've seen some people like, guys just ignoring all this stuff going around. Like, no, like why can't we try these things? And that bothers me, but I like seeing events like that. I'm like, it's like you're breaking through, like you won't stop me. We're still going to do this. And
well, I've always felt, and I think this speaks to your point you were just making, and the complaint that some people may have is like, just because at one particular time you're focusing on one cause doesn't mean you are ignoring or shunning all other causes. Your mind can operate and care about multiple things at the same time, and you can choose what to focus on. And if you are doing any good, making any sort of impact, there's no room for naysaying. No, those people are just myopic and closed-minded.
Right. Yeah. It sometimes it just irks me, but like that's one thing I've seen. I'm like, people are doing good things. We're all trying. Like I like someone bashing stand-up comedians still trying to do something because they've lost their homes and stuff, and it's like, it sucks. It's not the same, but they got to do something. It's healthy, rather than sit and fester.
There's been a lot of really incredible streaming art that has come out of the last 8 or 9 months. A lot of people have had to pivot. Some has been more successful than others, but I give nothing but credit to anyone who's like, what, I have to keep working and make it work. And a lot of them have done a great job. It's been really good to see people.
Right, you done that. You started Front Center Mezzanine during this. I started this show during this. Like things have evolved. They've changed. People did find drive despite the odds,
Yeah.
And So, all right. So we'll move on to the movie discussion. Out of Sight is directed by Steven Soderbergh and stars George Clooney, Jennifer Lopez. Hold on. Just let me roll through these. Ving Rhames, Don Cheadle, Catherine Keener, Dennis Farina, Viola Davis, Steve Zahn, Nancy Allen, Isaiah Washington, Luis Guzman, Michael Keaton, Samuel L. Jackson, and Albert Brooks. It's based on the 1996 Elmore Leonard novel of the same name. The film is about a career bank robber who breaks out of jail and shares a moment of mutual attraction with the U.S. Marshal he has kidnapped. Maxwell, okay, this movie's fantastic, but what made you want to bring it to the table for this show? Just like that.
I mean, like you said, I think it's an incredible movie. I think it's interesting because when you look back both at the cinema of the 90s and the career of Steven Soderbergh, who I would argue is one of the great American filmmakers of the last 20 to 30 years, for some reason, this one I find gets missed or overlooked a lot.
Oh, yeah.
and you know, this is a movie I've always loved. I think it's so good. And it just, I'll mention it and people have like a vague memory of it, or they'll be like, oh, J-Lo's in it, oh, I don't want to watch her in a movie, which is besides the fact that I think she's been good in many movies, she's incredibly good in this movie.
The frame can barely contain her. She's so larger than life. Like,
well, and that's the other thing. Like, I would say this is, and I'm not talking about nudity, I'm not talking about like, sex scenes, but this is one of the sexiest movies I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, this is hot
because of two things. The chemistry between Clooney and Lopez is the sort of lightning in a bottle chemistry you so rarely find, and the editing.
Oh, yes,
which was Oscar nominated. The editing in this film is some of the best I've ever seen. There's a sequence, about halfway through, where George Clooney and J-Lo are in a hotel bar. And I think, from what I remember, I should have rewatched the film this week. I'm remiss for not having, but I've been busy. But I have seen it like 50 times in my life. I think it's snowing outside.
Yeah.
And just the way that scene is edited and shot, the glances, the close-up of the glass, it's just so sexy.
Oh yeah, I love.
And that's not to mention this too. And that's not to mention the scene in the trunk towards the beginning when it all starts, which is sort of icky to a certain point. And there is definitely an element of Stockholm syndrome towards the relationship that forms between Karen, Cisco, and Jack. But I think the movie does a good job of giving Karen agency and strength.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel, for me, by the end of the film, icky.
Yeah. You also get a sense of, you can't really read her mind on things as well. You don't know whether she enjoyed it, but it knows how to take advantage of the situation to win the day, or is she really struck with him? Like, it's never 100% clear with Karen. With Clooney, yes, 100%. But with her,
well, and I think that's a testament also to J-Lo, is like she plays it so perfectly. Like, she has this steely, badass exterior, and there are times where you see her slipping a little bit, and then you have to think, is she slipping because she's slipping, or is she doing that to manipulate Jack?
Exactly.
Because remember, she's a U.S. Marshal. She's trying to catch Jack and bring him to jail. And so is it all part of a ruse? And that dynamic between them is so fascinating throughout the film.
And she's also playing a game to get ahead of work, too. There's times where she takes advantage of making her boss look bad or clowning him because he didn't. Yeah. Yeah.
And Karen Cisco, I think, is one of the great literary characters of our time. There was a TV show called Karen Cisco where Carla Gugino played the role. And then Carla got to sort of play the same character on Justified. They didn't, which is also, that series Justified was also based on an Elmore Leonard novel. If I'm not mistaken, they didn't exactly have the rights to the Karen Cisco name, but they did just enough, and it was Carla again that you knew that's who she was supposed to be.
Right.
But the other thing about this movie is there's a lot of movies in the 90s that felt like Tarantino ripoffs, knockoffs, heavily inspired. And it would be easy to say that this is one of those, but in some ways, and this may be sacrilegious to some people, I think it surpasses Tarantino's 90s crime films.
It's more accessible a bit.
It is more accessible, and the other thing is Jackie Brown is also based on an Elmore Leonard novel.
Right.
So Michael Keaton plays the same character in both movies.
Right. And I call this one a handshake movie with Jackie Brown, because it's not just Keaton that comes back, it's the direction of the score that kind of marries him, because what's his name? David Holmes, he uses a lot of Lalo Schifrin influence, Miles Davis, and it gets that watchka, a little bit of that exploitation 70s sound to it, which means we're kind of in the same world here, but here's how Soderbergh handles it rather than Tarantino. So they're different ends of the park, but they could totally...
I think that the two films make a great double feature, and I actually prefer... I love Pulp Fiction. I actually prefer Jackie Brown to Pulp Fiction. I think it's a more introspective and mature film to a certain level. I think
Right.
it was Tarantino really flexing his muscles in a different way.
People thought it
and the
was
two
crazy when I
films-
said that in 97. Now it's a lot more people
in
say it.
97, I could imagine. And again, I love Pulp Fiction. I think it's a
Right.
fantastic
Oh, it's
movie, but
brilliant.
there's something about Jackie Brown that resonates with me even more. And there are a lot of similarities in this. Like you were reading off the ensemble. It's just
Yeah.
like name after name of people giving incredible performances. Like Steve Zahn is hilarious.
Yeah.
Luis Guzman is always great. The late great Dennis Farina as J-Lo's father, such a great character
This is
actor.
a nice different role for Catherine Keener, kind of too. Like I really like this part with her.
Yeah, I mean, like the movie's just populated with so many people who have gone on to have incredible careers, and of course, we would not have Ocean's 11 if not for this movie. I mean, people when I've tried to pitch people to watch this movie, I'm like, imagine an R-rated Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
where it's a little grittier, a little more violent, but a very similar thing where you have Clooney playing a very charismatic, charming criminal.
More rural, like
a lot of it takes place in Detroit, and then the incredible spoilers are fine, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, all over this.
The incredible climax with Albert Brooks in his house, where the reveal is that the diamonds are like the rocks in the bottom of the fish tank.
Yes,
it's just so good. It makes me. It's so good.
Yeah, I loved this. This is one of those I would honestly label a perfect movie. There's nothing I would change.
I agree.
Works.
Like it is in my top 20 favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
That's how much I love it, and I wish more people talked about it. So I'm so happy to get to talk about it. And if even one person who listens to this or watches this is like, oh, I'm gonna go watch that movie, then I'll feel happy.
Even with the spoilers, trust me, it plays so well.
It does. Oh, and I also, I'm not always crazy about films that are non-linear. But I think the structure of this and its flashbacks works really well.
Well, and the opening is phenomenal. It's one of the best bank heist scenes of all time.
I was 1998. I was 11 years old when this came out. I saw it in theaters on opening day with my mom. It's rated R, so I was probably too young. But I would go to sleepaway camp every summer.
Okay.
And I loved movies. So the Friday before I would leave for sleepaway camp on Saturday, my mom would always take me to see 2 movies, and it would normally be whatever 2 movies opened that day. So if I'm not mistaken, the other movie that opened that day was Dr. Dolittle, the Eddie Murphy one.
Yes.
So we saw those 2 movies, and this movie blew my little 11-year-old mind.
Oh, I bet.
But I got the soundtrack, and much like the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, it's interspersed with dialogue clips from the film.
Oh, cool.
Which I love. And so that you were talking about the opening bank robbery scene where he goes and he robs this bank. He doesn't have a gun. He's literally just smooth talking his way into robbing this bank. And that dialogue clip is in the CD towards the beginning. I would listen to that over and over again when I was younger.
Right. And the thing is, I watched that. I was like, would that work? Like, it's so convincing. You're like, would that work? Would that be it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I think you need to have the innate charisma and charm of someone like George Clooney to pull that off.
And that scene kind of says, I'm here to stay. Like, a lot of people say George Clooney arrived here. I'm like, there's a lot of his Seth Gecko performance coming here that he's done. But, and this is coming off Batman and Robin the previous year, which didn't really do him harm.
Previous year or the same year?
It was 1997. It was Batman and Robin.
Batman and Robin was 97. Okay.
Yeah, and this is 98. This is his last year of ER.
I think it would be safe to argue this is the movie that convinced the world that Clooney's a movie star.
Yeah.
Like the transition from TV to film is not always easy. A lot of people try and fail. I'm looking at you, Katherine Heigl. But this movie, it was clear that this was a guy who was destined to light up the silver screen.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say that this, besides being one of the best films ever made, this is a film where, like, actors, a director that really understands Hollywood star power, and this is his first, like, huge leap, but he understands how to use it. Has a fully formed, evolved sense of what worked in Hollywood's golden years of male-female actor chemistry.
Yep.
But it doesn't sit and wax nostalgic. It just knows the beats, the structure, plays the strengths. And Clooney, Lopez, Soderbergh, Rhimes, Brooks, Cheadle, everybody plays to their strengths. And it's just
Well, I think
fabulous.
I took those like golden era of Hollywood elements
Mhm.
and very seamlessly put it into a very stylish, what was then modern package.
Right.
And that's the thing too, is like Soderbergh is nothing if not an incredibly stylish filmmaker. And before this, he had really done primarily super independent films. I mean, he had done
Right.
Sex, Lies, and Videotape. He had a couple other stuff that was really good. But this was, I think, probably his first more mainstream film.
Yeah.
And I think it showed, and why I love him so much as a filmmaker is he can make a more mainstream film without sacrificing his artistic proclivities.
Right.
Go watch the Ocean's movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are not many trilogies in our time that are as Hollywood and splashy as those.
Yeah.
And yet they're still so artfully made. Even Ocean's 12, which I think gets unneedlessly shit on a lot. And I know that our friend Aaron and I agree on this, that it's one of the great meta sequels because it's Soderbergh really like trolling the audience and being like, you were expecting one thing and we made an art film in Europe.
Right. Yeah. And I never and that's the thing. He has this stunning balance of art house sensibilities with big budget, visuals, whatever, star power, all that. Like, and this movie, like, you could expect to be, the nice mid-level player or the biggest movie of that, that summer or whatever. It feels like it, though it wasn't, but it's just, God, it's grand. Nowadays, it wouldn't. It doesn't have, a superhero or big blowing up things. But back in the 90s, this is what your big movie looked like.
It's the sort of mid-budget adult skewing film that I lament doesn't get made as much
Exactly.
anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you either have like the big tentpoles, superheroes, fantasy stuff, and I love that stuff. And then you have the art house independent stuff, which I also love. But there's this middle ground. Like, earlier this year, The Way Back, the Ben Affleck movie, that struck that chord. But you don't see that type of movie a lot. The mid-budget adult skew. So this really hits that. And the other thing you have to talk about this movie is Scott Frank, whose screenplay is so sharp and so smart. And he just wrote every episode of Queen's Gambit.
Excellent. Yeah.
Which was a fantastic Netflix series. So it's been so nice to see his career go from
And he got nominated for this one, too. This was the other nomination,
He was nominated for this screenplay, and then he was also nominated for writing the screenplay of Logan.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So he was the first guy to get a screenplay nomination for a superhero movie. So he's pretty talented writer.
Yeah, he's got a couple things. The thing I like, is Soderbergh's able to keep his voice intact while making a big studio film. That's what I like. That's what I think lacks in some. I think we're getting back to the. I've said this before, but I feel like we're getting back to that producer-driven workman thing from the 40s, 30s, and there's a element to that, but finding voices, you don't always get Curtiz with those. But that's what we're getting back to. But I want a voice. I want something strong. I would like people to just make their film and not tend to worry about ancillary stuff. Well, I do. I go to the Marvel movies. I'm there opening weekend. I enjoy them, but there's not enough variety aside from it.
Well,
that's the bothersome.
When the first thing obviously that came to my mind when you were talking about like producer driven movies was the MCU, right? Because that's Kevin Feige through and through. And like you, I'm at every MCU movie opening night. There's a lot of them I enjoy very much. There is no denying at the same time that a good majority of them are in a box. That being said, I do think more recently they have taken a few more risks. Like, you can't deny that Thor Ragnarok is
that's
not
one of my favorites too.
Taika Waititi film.
Right.
You can't deny that in Black Panther, Ryan Coogler was really able to bring what he wanted to bring to it. So it's been nice to see them. Those are James Gunn through and through. So you can't deny that they have, as they have had more and more success, allowed their filmmakers a little more opportunity to bring in their sensibilities. But that is one of the great things about Soderbergh is his ability to make Hollywood movies with his style. And then he would go and do Traffic and Aaron Brockovich 2 years later.
This starts his run. It's like, Limey comes after
only
this.
from, if I'm not mistaken, one of only 3 filmmakers in history to have 2 Best Director Oscar nominations in the same year.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he would do the Ocean's movies.
I like, and he's still got experience. Like, I liked Bubble that he did in
Yeah,
like 05, was it? Yeah.
Really, really like his remake of Solaris that he did with George Clooney.
That was, yeah. You can like both those, by the way. I think.
They're
both
very different.
Yeah.
And when people ask me what are some of the movies that aren't yet on Blu-ray or 4K that you're dying to have, that's one of them.
Yeah.
The fact that is not available in a beautiful print is a shame, because it's a gorgeous movie.
And you think he'd push for it? Like, he could get somebody to do that.
I would think so.
Yeah.
He's such a fascinating guy, because he would retire and then he came back.
He's
and
the
made
best
movies
retired director of all time. That's...
Oh yeah, the movie he made on his iPhone for Netflix, High Flying Bird, was great. And Logan
Unsane.
Lucky,
I like.
Yeah, Unsane was great. I mean, he's just fascinating guy.
Yeah, no, totally. But yeah, this starts a big run for him. Lopez, like, I think this was the next year she becomes a pop star with their album,
right?
And takes a couple years off movies before doing The Cell. But before this, she had an interesting year of U-Turn, Anaconda, and Selena. It was like, here's my range, and then next year I hone it all in. Like,
I think she's terrific in Selena. I think that's a really good musical biopic. Anaconda is a joy just to watch, to see John Voight get eaten. But I think it wasn't until just last year. Was that Hustlers was 2019 or 2018?
I think it was 2019.
It wasn't until Hustlers where I finally thought she was given a role to show everything she could do that she had done in Out of Sight, because she kept getting cast in either okay rom-coms or terrible thrillers, like that one she did, what was it, The Boy Next Door?
Yep.
Just bad movies, and I was like, she is more talented than this.
Yeah, and people will go see her just with her name on the poster, though. She's one of the few that have that ability just to pull in money on her name alone.
I have a soft spot for Made in Manhattan, I'm not going to lie, but that's not exactly a film that shows off what she can do.
Yeah, I think that the great thing about this movie, going back to it and watching it, was just when you watch her, you're like, oh, she was already here. She did not arrive. We arrived.
Yep.
She just got the opportunity to be like, check out, I've been doing this. And,
I couldn't agree more.
And we are late to the game. Nobody's arriving.
I would love to see Clooney and Lopez team up again for something, because like I said, they had such rare natural chemistry. You don't get that often.
Yeah.
And chemistry can really make or break a movie, especially one that has a will they won't they type of romance is such an integral part of the narrative.
And this is supposed to be Bullock and Clooney, but Bullock it wasn't. Soderbergh said she wasn't. They were great together, but she wasn't fitting the Elmore Leonard vibe that he wanted.
Which I could see, and I like Sandra Bullock a lot. I think I think in Gravity she's incredible. I think that's the one she should have won for, not The Blind Side. And I think she's a terrific comedic actress, but I can't visualize her having fit in the world that he built with this film and in Elmore
not in
Leonard's
this character.
world.
Not in this character. No.
Maybe the Catherine Keener character, maybe, but she wasn't going to take that small part.
Luckily, Sandy's an icon in her own right, so this is a little blip.
She's had fine career.
She's had a fine career, but yeah, Jennifer Lopez here is just tremendous, and there's a lot of stuff with her that I see he uses, like angles and the way some of the choreography that he uses again in Haywire many years down the road. I felt like I was seeing some of the genesis of that in areas, which was interesting.
Yeah, Haywire is so fascinating. I'm not going to go on a Gina Carano rant, although I'm not quite a fan. But
not many of us are.
Certainly, the physicality of that character and what he did with Karen Sisco, you could definitely draw a through line there. That's really interesting. Yeah,
definitely. Some interesting little bits for me about this movie, what little ones that have stuck forever. George Clooney flicking the Zippo when DVDs were this movie came out at the advent of DVD kind of starting to get a little more popular.
Yep. 97, 98 is really when I started buying DVDs.
Right. So Universal had a sizzle reel on them to like, oh, DVD. It would always start with him flicking the lighter and
Okay.
the do do and the earth spinning for Universal, and it'd go through DVD is the new technology, and then it'd show a bunch of movies they had, but it'd always start with the lighter flick would be the first sound, and then drums. And I always remember that, and it's from this movie. So if you ever put an old DVD and you see a lighter flick, it's George Clooney at the beginning of this movie.
There you go. That's fascinating. I don't think I have any more DVDs at this point. Maybe a handful.
Yeah, I also did Blu-ray and DVD testing when I lived in Los Angeles, and we did Universal titles. So that would be, if you got an old one that they were putting out again to test, that would be on there. But
sure.
I always remember that. One of the best comedic lines from Dennis Farina of all time, when Michael Keaton comes in the room with the FBI shirt on, and it said, and he's like, "You ever wear one of those that says undercover?"
Yeah,
and,
I remember. That's so good.
Best lines, and Keaton's just, huh, what? But the fact that Michael Keaton came back, reprised his role, and didn't charge, and that Tarantino convinced Miramax to let them do it because they had the rights to the character.
You know, I know cinematic universes now are sort of like eye roll worthy because everyone tries to build them the wrong way.
Right.
But I would not be against like another Elmore Leonard adaptation with Michael Keaton as Ray Nicolette.
Oh,
or if you brought J-Lo back as Karen Cisco, like obviously he kept writing these books where these characters would appear in different ways. I think there'd be a great opportunity to see some of these characters again. That could be really fun.
Oh, I'd love to see that. That would be great. One of my other favorite things, White Boy's death.
Yes.
And I notice it's foreshadowed. Like he slips on the ice before and falls to a knee before they go to do the job. He slips on the steps the first time they go up to him too, and then he slips when he's getting stuff out of the fridge. I'm like, oh, okay. They were showing us this.
And then of course, at the end, when Clooney gets into like the paddy wagon and get taken to jail, who else is in there with him? But in another uncredited part, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, that's huge.
Not playing his same character from Jackie Brown, but still, I remember. I don't know if when I first saw it, because like I said, I saw it in theaters when I was 11. If I was super aware of who Samuel L. Jackson was, although no, because Phantom Menace was the next year, so I don't even know if I had seen him at that point.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm not sure if I had seen him in anything because I hadn't seen Pulp Fiction at that time.
Well, yeah, you were.
Yeah, I didn't see Pulp Fiction until I was 14. Still maybe too young, but but yeah, and like going back now and you see Samuel L. Jackson, is like, who better to be in there with him to make that ending scene have real impact?
It's a great cameo. Like that's the power of like a cameo right there. And him showing, because like back then for me, he was in like The Negotiator and Sphere. Like,
you know what?
Fiction and...
I think I had, I think I had seen The Negotiator. I remember seeing that in theater. So if that was before, then I had seen it.
Yeah, but yeah, this was in his beginning of his climb, and then 2 years later he'd be Shaft, and also a year later he had The Phantom Menace. So
right,
it was the exciting. Everybody knew who he was then. You're in Star Wars. You're loved and hated for life. It's great.
It's true, and sometimes both at the same time.
Right. All right. Yeah, and this, as I mentioned, Entertainment Weekly ranked it the sexiest movie ever in 2008. So after 10 years, out of sight.
Yeah,
sexiest
like
movie of all time.
I think it's easy to be sexy when you're showing like graphic nudity and sex scenes and stuff like that. I think it's so much harder to make something sexy when it's a little more into the imagination.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this movie really excels at, is like the furtive glances, the little hand touches, the editing, the smolder between the two of them, the way they look at each other. That is so sexy.
And it's always Clooney in the bathtub, not her.
Yes, which, hey, very sexy.
He is a handsome man.
Yes,
Very much.
He is.
It's like, how did it take? I mean, granted, he has a TV career from the 80s through the 90s, but man, the fact that it took so long for him to just leap off and do his own, just putting in the work. Like he used to sleep in Tom Matthews, the star of Return of the Living Dead, and Jason Lives. They were best buds and grew up like being actors in Hollywood. And Tom was supposed to be the one to take off, and George paid him rent to sleep in his closet.
I mean, Jason Lives is my favorite Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, and that guy, Tom Matthews, he's a building contractor now, and he's done George Clooney's house. They still keep in touch, and
now George Clooney has multiple Oscars. He sold a tequila company for $1 billion. He has a new film coming out in a couple weeks that looks really, really good.
He's doing all right.
What is it? Midnight Sky? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. I think they just released a new poster recently.
I think that looks good. But yeah, I think it's, and like I said before, like to me, George Clooney's career as an actor and everything he's accomplished can be traced back to this. I think this is where his screen persona was really molded for the first time.
Yeah. And he also has one of my first lines when winning an Oscar. He said, "Well, it looks like they're not giving it to me for Best Director."
Yep.
I mean, it was good.
How often? I mean, he won for Syriana and was nominated for directing Good Night and Good Luck that year. Yep. That's a very rare thing to happen, to be nominated for a different film for acting than directing. Yep, that was great. I love Good Night and Good Luck. I think it's a great film.
It's a great, people should check that one out easily.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Jennifer Lopez goes on to put on one of the best Super Bowl halftime shows.
I was lucky enough to see J-Lo in Vegas in the Vegas show, and it's such a great show.
I heard that was awesome.
She's an incredible entertainer. She really is. And then actually my friend and I went and saw, she did like a 50th birthday tour. So here in New York at Madison Square Garden last summer.
Okay.
Before the world shut down in 2019. And let me tell you, for a 50-year-old, she's still got it.
Yeah. Yeah. And she is just a present. Like, this is a rare, like, these two are just big presences. Like, just, and they both are so generous to each other on the screen. That's why the chemistry's so there.
There's no ego. There's no one-upmanship. They're just really, like, it's a symbiotic performance from both of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
If you have not seen Out of Sight, just buy it, right?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, own it.
It gets my highest possible recommendation.
Oh, yeah. It's so good. All right. We'll move on to what else? This is the segment where we talk about anything else we've worked on recently, read, watched, other sorts of media that we'd like to plug here. So, Maxwell, what else?
Oh, that's I've been watching a lot of Christmas movies. You mentioned the show I host, Front Center Mezzanine, but that show is on the PJ Campbell Network, which I'm a big part of. We do watch-alongs on Mondays and Fridays.
Okay.
Where me and PJ and the other rotating cast of people who are sort of in the network will watch a movie live, comment on it, engage with the chat. So I've been watching a lot of Christmas movies there, and that network does a lot of other shows. We do a show every Sunday night called The Unwind, where we just sort of relax and chill and talk about the week in movies. So a lot of my time since April really has been focused on the network. We produced a show called Box, which is a very silly sort of scripted comedy show that we do. That's been fun. Then apart from my work with the network, I've been reading Rachel Bloom's book. She created and starred in My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah.
She just published a book called I Want to Be Where the Normal People Are, which is like a series of comedic essays, based on her life and her experiences. And she's very vulnerable, very vulgar, very funny. Really enjoying that.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Myself, I've only watched one, my Fellini box set from Criterion, which
very nice.
I see people buying stacks of like the Barnes and Noble stale, and I was like, well, I had one.
That's a pretty good one.
It's got 14 movies in it, and,
right?
But I watched Variety Lights, which is a really awesome little tale. I don't think I'd seen that one before, but it's about a theater director, like a little company that travels, and he falls for a starlet, and she doesn't really use him, but he's kind of misled on his own doing, following her through her career, which she just constantly lets him down and just gives up on everything for her as she succeeds and he continues to falter at her side. But it's a neat little movie. I get restorations good. The box set's do you have that one, Maxwell?
No, I would love to get that one. I have a bunch of Criterions, but that one is
gotcha. The art
I put the Ingmar Bergman box set on my holiday wish list.
Hopefully your shelf is strong enough. It's a heavy one.
Yeah.
It's a brick. But it's all that's a go. I still haven't finished going through that one. That's 39 movies. But
yep.
Awesome. Like I just putting out these director sets is just like who's next year? Like Truffaut? Are we gonna do Kurosawa?
Kurosawa. I mean, I own a lot of Kurosawas, but if they put out a set of all of his, I would buy it in a second.
Trade it in for. And last year, filmmaker Godzilla got one. So
I have the Godzilla one, which is great.
Yeah. So I'm excited that. And I watched last night, which will be 2 weeks ago when this drops, probably, or a week and a half. I don't know. The Blade 4K Ultra HD.
Oh, very nice.
That looks great. I got that one for review, and I popped in last night. I was like, oh, dang, they really took care of Blade. Because I think 4K is doing a lot of 90s films favors, because those would be hit and miss on Blu-ray when they came out, kind of like the awe of them looking really clear. But I think because we got a lot of grungy, dark films back then, and now with the black levels of 4K Ultra HD and the HDR, they're able to handle them better, so now they're looking a little more impressive. So, but Blade was really good.
The film that comes to mind that I would love to get a 4K release, inspired by what you just said, is The Crow.
Oh yeah, definitely. That'll be one. Someone's gonna put that out.
I think so, because the Blu-ray doesn't look that great. Mm-hmm. And I got the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit 4K sets, but I have not had the time to dive into those yet, because I'm also in the middle of moving.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
So.
And I have to review those, and I don't have the time to put them in right now.
I can't wait to watch them. I mean, I've read some reviews and seen some screenshots, and the image quality looks spectacular. But, they are not short films.
No, and I want to watch the extended, and I hope my PR guy that is patient with me. I told him, I'm like, because he didn't get them to me till like Saturday, and they came out. A day ago, and I was like, I hope you realize this is a undertaking, but
this is not a one night review. Right. This is a week or two.
I went over them on my YouTube channel to show the packaging, so I at least got that in, but and I don't want to sit to rush through them to write about them. I want to enjoy them, so they're gonna have to. Luckily, there's no bonus features on those at all. They're straight movie. But if you redeem the digital copy, there are a couple featurettes on the digital, but.
That's so, I lament how it seems like with the shifts in physical media that bonus features are not as beloved as they once were. Yeah. I mean, like in the heyday of DVDs, I mean, it was all about bonus features. Like I remember those extended editions of the Lord of the Rings films and those big sets each one came with, and they had hours and hours and hours of features.
And now it's like on set 5 minutes. Like what?
Yeah, no. Maybe a commentary if you're lucky.
It's weird that the big studio movies that have the money for this, less bonus features, but the culty ones shot in New Jersey in the summer of like 70 something, loads, hour and a half documentary. It's great, but just love to see it.
Who knows?
All right. Well, that'll wrap us up for today, Maxwell. I have had such an exciting time having you on here and recording together.
Thank you for having me. It's great.
I can't remember the last time we recorded together was. It's probably like a year ago, and we're like, oh yeah, just 2020 seems like forever. You and I, we've had some of the best film discussions I've partaken in over the years, and we had another one today, and just enjoyed following television stuff with you over the years. Where can people keep up with you and find your work?
You could follow me on Twitter at CinemaXwell. I tweet a lot about movies and theater and sometimes politics. So if you don't like politics, maybe don't follow me. Instagram at CinemaXwell Inc.
Or they can learn, or they can follow you and learn.
Sometimes it's a lot of screaming at stuff. Instagram is at CinemaXwell Inc. And like I said before, I am a frequent contributor and producer on the PJ Campbell Network, which is on YouTube. We have shows pretty much every night of the week that we talk about movies, we watch movies. We have a show called Suddenly Soundtracks, where we'll take a soundtrack from a movie and go song by song and critique and analyze them outside of the context of the film. We do family game nights on Saturday on our Twitch, where we play like Mario Party or Among Us and all sorts of stuff. So we're always doing lots of fun stuff over at the PJ Campbell Network.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. My written work on whysoblue.com. The show returns tomorrow with 4K Blues Day. Until then, always remember to keep the positivity in your online film discussion.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at thebrandonpetershow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail@thebrandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.